Hello, 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 and welcome to another SCOUTCAST brought to you by Fantasy Football Scout. That's right, we're back again this week, even though there's only been one fixture to finish off the game, and what an absolute doozy of a fixture as well, with Mo Salah obviously getting a few returns, with Everton striking early and then striking very late on in the 98th minute to absolutely kill the Arne Slot owners out there. As always, you're joined by me, Andy, FPL Mode, and we are also joined by two other Arne Slot owners, which is something I didn't think I'd be saying this season. Hibbo, how's it going, my man? Last minute equaliser for Everton. That wasn't on the cards, was it?
No, disgusting. I'd like to say congratulations to the Moyes owners, but I don't really mean it. I think this game week, how you could sum up this game week is you've probably heard of the children's film, The Never Ending Story. Well, this has been the never ending game week. It's been going since the 1st of February.
That film made me cry as well.
I know this made me cry. And you made a great point. There's been one Premier League game in the time that we've done two pods. So as usual, I think we review the game weeks. We look at what's coming up ahead, and it's great to see you, and it's great to see Luka Modric.
It is. It's always lovely to see Luka. Yeah, Ballon d'Or winner. Nacho, obviously lovely to see you tonight as well. You've managed to put a smile on your face, but you were maybe a little bit depressed before we started the stream tonight.
Yeah, honestly, I was pretty content. Obviously, the triple captain Mo Salah situation, hats off to anybody that went there. But the Arne Slot's win was enough. It wasn't obviously covering the Salah situation, but I was content with it. That last minute goal from Tarkowski has just ruined not only my day, my week, maybe even my year. So it could be quite
it's only February.
It's only Feb. It's only Feb, Valentine's Day Friday. So oh god, need to cheer up for that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to doing this because I need to clear my head and sort out what is going on for Double Game Week 25 because lo and behold, there's a lot going on for that week.
I mean, I'm not going to lie, Hibbo, I was completely set on triple captain Salah. I was there when we were streaming before the deadline. I was like, yeah, triple captain Salah, this looks good. I was going to be holding on to Chris Wood as well, and then obviously the assistant manager chip was there anyway, and we could use it in game week 24. And then all the double game weeks got announced, and it was like, oh, hello, Arne Slot for 5 fixtures potentially, and obviously it fell like that as well because of the FA Cup results. What happened? Obviously, Salah has absolutely smashed it. Is it 5 returns? I think he's had, or 4 returns. So a massive, obviously, week for them, but. Yeah, just goes to show. Said it all along, didn't I? Assistant manager chip is an absolute waste of time, and it should have been burnt early on. Yeah, not great. But obviously, triple captain Salah's, Salah triple captainers absolutely winning, aren't they?
Well, we talked about this kind of as we approached the game week before we knew about the potential double in 25, and at that stage, triple captain was a clear winner. But once the double came under contention, and everybody started looking at kind of expected points for. I suppose even the Moyes route. If you look at how many points, has Moyes scored more than 20?
12. Yeah, he would have done, wouldn't he?
So, managers that are chasing the table bonus rightly have kind of thought Moyes and then maybe move to Emery. And, I suppose even if you scab a draw in the second game and it's a table bonus game, there's a chance they score big. But I think the logic was there, kind of to a certain extent, with Bournemouth away, Everton away. But Salah, and he's just having an absolutely crazy season. And he'd be truly missed, I think, if he leaves the Premier League at the end of the season.
He really will. It's looking more and more likely he'll stay. But Nacho, I'm seeing people out there with 120 points on red arrows. This is probably one of the biggest scoring weeks in FPL history in terms of the average score, isn't it? And to get that amount of points and still get a red arrow, it's a weird feeling this week, isn't it?
Yeah, it's painful. It is painful. I think anybody watching this right now, listening back, aren't alone. If you are looking at 110 plus and still on a red arrow, that is going to be a common theme this week. And yeah, it's a painful one for those managers who obviously on hindsight were going to go for the triple captain. But we need to remember assistant manager chip is for 3 consecutive game weeks. So still got 2 weeks to go. And if you did keep your triple captaincy back, who knows what's going to happen in future weeks. So don't get too down in the dumps. Who knows? We might get an Alexander Isak hat-trick at some point and it might pay off. So we got to stay on the bright side for sure.
Exactly. And by the way, it sounds like it is massively kicked off at the end of the game and Arne Slot got sent off. So
no.
for all those that are worried out there, that doesn't make a difference to your assistant manager score. So don't think that he's now going to get you more, less points. But could you imagine if that was the case? He just got sent off. Decore got sent off. Curtis Jones got sent off all after the game. So imagine if Slot got minus points. It's not how it works, and that is confirmed. That is not how it works. So don't worry. But imagine if it was. Absolutely mental. Imagine that last minute equaliser and then he gets sent off as well. And imagine that, because I'm assuming you'd have to make a sub for the next game or something, wouldn't you? But obviously that's not how it works, so do not worry. Shall we look at what we're going to be talking about tonight? Because we've got quite a lot to talk about tonight and we want to get going. So we've got our points to look at. Now the points are what they were like before this game that's just been played. And actually there's been a massive difference after this game. The boys might know what their scores are after this game as well. So we'll talk through those. We've got our XA and XGI tables, which we always look at. We also have the predicted fixtures for the doubles and blanks coming forward. So we're going to be having a little look at those and talking about our plans moving forward, although it's still kind of fluid at the moment, I would say. We're also got a look at the fixtures as a whole, because obviously it's not just all about the double and blank game weeks. It is also about those game weeks in between. We've got our bus teams. We don't have a community team update yet, which it's not always a good thing for the community team. Usually if they're having a good week, I get messaged literally instantly. So I'm assuming they're not. We'll see how they're getting on. But apart from that, that is it. So in terms of my points, I was on 80 points before tonight. I'm just going to try and load up to see how many points. I was on 117 before the equaliser, so we'll see how we're getting on. But I was on a red arrow. I had Pickford, so I brought in Pickford and Dye and Mbeumo for Chris Wood, Allison, I know, and Eze. So Eze was the only one that really worked that. I also benched Raul Jimenez. So I was going to be on triple captain Salah, but obviously that didn't finish. I finished on 114 and like a 2k red, 10k red, something like that. So not the game week I obviously wanted. Triple captain Salah would have been the play, and obviously keeping Chris Wood as well. And Dye looked like it wasn't too bad of a play until he got stretchered off. Well, not stretchered off, but he went off in the first 20 minutes. So not the game week I wanted. I feel like I'm in an okay position moving forward. It looks most likely I'm going to try and get a Bournemouth midfielder in if I can this week. But yeah, not really the week I wanted. Red arrow. I pressed the button on this week and thought, I don't know how I can get a red arrow. I literally thought, I don't know, I don't see it happening at all. Like, this looks so good as a team. I had those Newcastle boys that were all looking good, and I just thought, here we go. Lovely. Slot as assistant manager. This chip that I've slated all year, and here we go. It's now going to get me a green arrow, and I somehow got like a 50k red. So it's just going to be one of those years, I think. Let's move on to somebody that's a little bit happier. Hibbo, talk us through your points and see if you can tell us what your live points are at the moment as well.
My live points. So I submitted my points last night, and I'm not sure, about 90 or something like that, but my live score at the minute's 130. So nice, not too bad. This game week's really been about a moving target. So we've submitted the points last night, but it's changed a lot between last night and today. So I made 2 changes going into this week. I did Alisson Becker to Pickford, and I did Raul Jimenez to Beto, believe it or not. Mm-hmm. So the goalkeeper move, on theory, it gave me a keeper for 29, and it also let me get Arne Slot as my assistant manager. It hasn't really worked out, really, because Moyes is obviously hacked up, although Moyes people have to make a transfer. 139 lives, or 130 live score. I've jumped up the 286k from 351, so happy enough with that, considering how big Salah scored and like how many like triple captainers there probably are out there. So just to run through my team from back to front, I'd pick for 10 points, Mikalenko 7, Trent 7, Greaves 1, Salah captain with 58, Palmer with 6, Bruno Fernandes with 1, Roger with 1, Beto with 21, João Pedro with 1, and Isaac with 2, and I think Slot got 15 as the assistant manager as well. So I think overall for the week, kind of happy enough. Beto saved me bacon, but like I think anybody that did the research on like Beto versus him,
don't do it.
Anybody that did the research on Beto versus him, it was clear as anything to see who the better asset was, and that was Beto by hands down. So that's why I picked him, and that's why he scored the 21 points at 0.2% effective ownership.
Horrible. This is the most I've had to bite my lip streaming this year. I am in absolute pain. When I saw he scored last night, I was like, oh, well, you know what happens. Variance happens. For him to score tonight as well, I I can remember talking to you and you were like, oh, for Christ's sake, I can't get in die. I'm going to have to get Beto. And you were like, I can't believe I've got to get Beto. He's absolute awful. And I was like, brilliant. Like, you were talking the whole time beforehand saying, people are just following projections, getting Beto. It's disgusting. What happens? You get him, get 21 points. Don't you shake your head, young man. Absolutely disgusting. Just admit it. Admit it. You do not deserve those points.
I can categorically deny that conversation ever happened.
I've got screenshots. I will post them on Twitter.
You post them.
Oh my goodness. No, 21 points. For God's sake. I literally, me and Nacho here trying to earn an honest living, and you're just, I don't know what to do anymore, Nacho. Should we just kick him from the stream?
I feel like it's the only way, mate. It's the only way. I can't. First João Pedro, now this. It's just terrible form.
I know, it really is.
I think what this kind of highlights is that the fact of the matter is I couldn't afford and die, so I bought Beto. That's the fact. But I think what this proves is that on double game weeks, there's always kind of these fringe assets that end up hitting big. Isn't it always the case that there's always a double that comes around and some totally obscure pick just absolutely knocks it out of the park? And if you're lucky enough and you're on them, which I have been here, I have to admit it's been lucky that I've been on Beto this week, honestly.
I'm not angry.
Humble.
I'm not angry.
Stay humble.
I'm so disappointed.
Stay humble.
Stay humble, eh? That's all right, because we all know good things happen after people say stay humble. Nacho, on to your points. This looks like more of an honest week from you. Talk us through it.
I'm an honest manager. I'm just slow and steady. We know that. So
66% of this stream is honest. Go on, then.
I like that. So, May 3 transfers. It feels like a lifetime ago, doesn't it? So, May 3 transfers. I'm just reflecting now, but 3 transfers were all for Everton players. So, I was asking for trouble, really. So, I did Anderson to Mikalenko, João Pedro to Ndai, and Alisson to Pickford in order to enable the assistant managership on Arnie Slot. So, the actual transfers were fine. Like, obviously, Alisson versus Pickford pretty much the same, but I'm happy with the 2 players that I did actually sell. So similar to yourself, Annie, like going into this game week, I felt pretty content. Yeah. It did feel like if the only thing that was really going to punish was going to be Moyes beating Liverpool or Mo Salah going off in the triple captaincy. One of those came off. So it is what it is. We took the risk going for the assistant managership. And as we mentioned, I'm definitely looking at Arnie Slot as more of a 2-game week perspective as opposed to this one in isolation. So as long as Unai Emery doesn't go huge in game week 25, I think on reflection, Arnie Slot was perfectly fine as a choice. So I'm currently just looking at it right now on 121 points, which is actually a small red arrow to about 208k. And just reading through, Pickford with the 10-pointer, Trent and Mikalenko with 7s apiece, and Gabriel. Midfield is pretty poor, to be honest with you. Already got the Bournemouth in place with Semenyo with 2, Gordon with 1. Obviously got a knock right now, which is not ideal. Palmer, Salah, and Divisa and Isak up top. So, yeah, a pretty average week, to be honest with you, and never nice getting a red arrow with a chip activated.
No, exactly. I mean, like we said, weird week. So many high scores, but the average was so high. So even if you were on 120 points, you're looking at most likely a red arrow. But those triple captain Saliners... why do I keep saying it like that? Salah triple captainers are obviously, loving life this week. So fair play if you carried on with that, because it's one of those weeks as well where the trend really started picking up in terms of that assistant manager chip being played, didn't it? And as soon as that extra double game week was announced, it was like, right, this seems to be the optimal strategy. And for those people that held their nerve and knew that all those people were playing assistant manager chip, but still thought triple captain on Salah was the play, fair play, because you've obviously come out of that pretty well. But like you've just said, obviously it's a little bit different because we've got Slot for 3 weeks. That's the other thing, is that it's not just based on 1 week. He could smash it next week and get you another 20-pointer, and all of a sudden it's not looking too bad. But So obviously a lot of people are mentioning Trent in the chat as well. Weren't expecting him to obviously not play tonight or only to come on for a little bit, but obviously that was due to injury. So let's have a look at some XA tables. So this is over the last 6 game weeks. Who is leading the XA tables? We've got Anthony Alanga at the top, which I think is the first time he's been at the top. 2.88 XA. He's got 6 assists in the last 6 game weeks. So he's absolutely smashing it from a creative sense. 17 key passes. We got Mbumo in second with 2.16, Salah 2.09, and De Bruyne back up here at 2.08. They're the only guys above 2. Then we've got Eze, Sarr, Munoz, Bruno Guimaraes, Cole Palmer, Jackson. They're all above 1.50. Then we got Trent, Jacob Murphy, Kulusevski, Damsgaard, and Savio. We've obviously been talking an awful lot, Nacho, about Chris Wood this year, but his accompanying people that are obviously accompanying this year, people like Alanga, Morgan Gibbs-White, obviously they've kind of gone under the radar because people don't really want to double up on Forest assets. But Alanga, 6 assists in his last 6 game weeks, 2.88 XA and 17 key passes. He's low-key balling, isn't he?
Yeah, he's doing really well. I think we always look at someone like an Alanga and think very much a purple patch sort of player. So you kind of want to jump on at the right time with him. And fair play to any manager that did go there. I don't think I've had a Nottingham Forest attacker literally since the early days. So it's been quite painful actually watching Nottingham Forest ticking over nicely each and every week. I think obviously with Forest right now, we need to have game week 29 in our minds because they have a great fixture away against Ipswich in that blank game week. And while I think Alanga could easily tick over for sure in the future, I think with the fixtures coming up for Forest, Fulham, Newcastle, Arsenal, Man City, I think we can sit tight right now. If you have someone like a Chris Wood, great, but I wouldn't be sitting there advising anyone to be buying Alanga with these upcoming game weeks. But fair play to anybody that had him over these past 6 game weeks because he's done so well as a differential.
Yeah, he really has. I mean, someone that isn't a differential but does cost an awful lot of money, Hibbo, is Trent, and he's on this list. Now, Trent, like as we said, got injured. Slot's come out and said, no, there was no way he was going to start this week, and he's still not really 100% fit. If you own him, obviously they got the double game week now. Are you a little bit worried about his minutes moving forward? He's an awful lot of money for somebody that's becoming a little bit injury prone, not playing as much as he's used to. Connor Bradley's a very, very able deputy as well. Have you got a little bit of worry about him there? Obviously, they're blanking in 29 too. There seems to be more and more reasons not to own him that are piling up as the weeks go on, aren't there?
I think it's right to have some concern. I think he had a slight hamstring strain, I think it was, going under this week. And this week has obviously been never ending. But a lot of the narrative was that basically he was going to miss out because Spain Cup and regular Liverpool leakers have been basically saying that Bradley was going to start this game, which is fair enough. Now, what do I think about Trent going forward? This week, for this game, Everton, I think we had to take it in the chin. And because Liverpool didn't keep a clean sheet, it was negligible, really. It didn't really affect us. But I think if we look at kind of going forward, I think there's nothing we can do about the immediate game week, if that makes sense. Am I going to take Trent out ahead of Wolves and Aston Villa? Probably not. You could argue that such as their fixture schedule, I think they play 4 games in 11 days. Is he going to miss a game, or is he going to have his game time reduced at some point over that period? It's possible. But looking directly towards the double game week, I think if you have him in place, how do you flip him and change him to say a Van Dijk? I don't think you do it, because so much of our pod's going to be based around future luck and looking towards kind of blank game week 29 about how finite transfers are and how useful they're going to be going forward. And I just don't think it's that viable to be changing them here and now. I do accept your point about 29, but what I will say is he's got Southampton at home in 28 immediately before 29. And if there's going to be a money shot game with Trent, that could be it. By the same token, you could say, oh, that could be the game that he takes a rest. But I think for now, you stay on, you wouldn't see what happens. I'm a bit happy tonight because of the fact that he actually played about 30 minutes.
Yeah.
I would have been more worried if he wasn't on the squad tonight, or if he was an unused sub. So the fact that he got 30 minutes, I think it kind of bodes well going forward. And I think going back maybe 6-7 game weeks ago, where he maybe last had an injury scare, everybody was a wee bit worried. Or when he was last seemingly out of form, everybody was a wee bit worried. and nothing came to pass. So I think the same rings true here. Watch the space and wait and see.
He's a tough buy though, isn't he? Like you wouldn't buy him
I wouldn't
right
buy.
now.
I wouldn't buy him though.
No.
Definitely not. But I wouldn't sell him by the same token.
I mean, another player you definitely wouldn't buy at the moment who's on this list is Nicholas Jackson and Nacho. I've got to ask you about him because now he's out until April. It's come out today that he's injured. He's out until April. Not the biggest injury that's come out today, but Nicholas Jackson is probably the second biggest injury. Out till April. Surely, let's go back to game week 1 again, Nacho, and start talking about Nkunku as an asset. Do you remember those days?
That's my boy. My boy.
That's my
Honestly. Oh, God. I watched Nkunku against Brighton and he just isn't cutting it at all. He doesn't have that sharpness right now, which is totally understandable because, of course, he hasn't played a lot of football. Now, the one thing I want to say is, of course, if you have Nicholas Jackson, get him gone because he is going to be out for the foreseeable future. Nkunku, 5.7 million as a midfielder. Like,
wow.
That is exciting. When we look at the fixtures coming up, Brighton away, Aston Villa away, Southampton at home, and Leicester at home. Now, I'm thinking about Chelsea right now as a team, and I don't see a world where Nkunku doesn't get significant minutes over this period. We didn't invest in January at all. We don't have anybody that can operate in those forward lines. We got rid of João Felix to AC Milan, a player that could play as a bit of a false 9 in that position. Yes, Cole Palmer could play as a false 9, but I just don't really see it because right now we're allowing him just so much freedom on the pitch. So I think Nkunku's game time is going to be good. But the problem is, I actually think the absence of Nicholas Jackson has really hindered Chelsea over the last few weeks.
Yeah.
And I think as a team right now, we're just not clicking at all. And it's not necessarily a case of buying Nkunku. It's more of a case of, can we confidently consider captaining Cole Palmer over the coming weeks? Because 27 and 28 are going to be really interesting weeks for captaincy. And I just have no confidence in Chelsea as a team right now. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens over these coming weeks because you don't sell Palmer, but I'm losing that confidence that we had at the start of the season.
Yeah, I think Nkunku definitely has to be put on people's watch list. I think for the price and the fact he's a midfielder and the fact he could be playing as 10, false 9, whatever it is he's going to be potentially playing, I think you've got to keep an eye on him, haven't you? But obviously, Hibbo, the other player I should mention as well, before we go on to the XGI table, Arsenal obviously lose another player. Havertz is out for the entire season. They've already got Saka out, although it looks like he's got a return date at the moment, which is quite good. Martinelli got injured. Their attack is just kind of dying off at the moment, isn't it?
It's not looking good for Arsenal attack, and it looks as if they had a rare misstep in the transfer market and the fact that they should have went on and invested a wee bit. And I think once Saka has dropped out of the team, I feel at times that they've looked a wee bit toothless, to be completely honest with you. And I think these kind of further injuries are only going to kind of add to that, Jesus, Havertz, etc. But like looking forward to this week, like Leicester away is a good fixture for Arsenal. They've got West Ham in 26. Now, I see a bit of noise. People are talking about the young player, Ethan Nathwari. But,
yeah.
How do you go there, I think, at this point in time, and the fact that you're potentially using transfers for this double game week, you're then looking towards the future kind of blank double or in 29. So I don't know. It wouldn't really be for me. Plus, he's only going to be on there for a while. Like he's a very young player, and Arsenal kind of have to throw him on at the deep end. He's only recently returned from injury himself, so probably wouldn't be for me. But I think Arsenal in general are stay off. Defense is okay, probably, but I wouldn't, in terms of their attack, I wouldn't really be looking near it, I don't think.
Yeah, no, I do agree. They've taken so many injuries. We're looking at the XGI table now. And top of the XGI table, by quite a distance as well, is Mateta now. 5.38 XGI over the last 6 game weeks. He seems to go on these runs, doesn't he? He did it at the end of last year. He went on an unbelievable run for about 5-6 game weeks. This season, he's doing it again at the moment. 5.38, like I said, XGI over the last 6 game weeks. 5 scoring contributions. You got Johan Wissa in second, who's on 4.64, and the only other two above 4 are Salah and Haaland. Then we've got Nicholas Jackson, who we've just mentioned there, who is injured at the moment. Alanga and Bumo, Isak, Chris Wood, Jamie Vardy and Gakpo are all above 3. And then Madueke, Palmer, Watkins and Eze round off the list. Eze at 2.86 XGI over the last 6 game weeks. Now, Nacho, we've mentioned Mateta quite a few times on this pod, and I can remember about 5-6 weeks ago we said he would be such a good differential away. Now, none of us went there for various reasons, but he has absolutely smashed it recently. He's obviously blanking, or most likely going to blank in game week 29. Is he a bad investment at the moment with the fact that there's a double game week now and there's a blank game week coming up and we need to be saving those transfers? Or is it a kind of, ride the hot hand at the moment and go with Mateta?
Yeah, I think it's interesting right now in Mateta because he falls under that category similar to Aston Villa players where we want to go there, but we're also looking in the future about blank game week 29 and understanding, is that going to negatively impact our team? Now, if you're sat there right now knowing you've got a free hit in game week 29, maybe you're sat there with 3 Liverpool, a couple of Palace, a couple of Newcastle, then I think Mateta absolutely should be on your radar because you get him for the next 4, which are, I think, are fantastic. Everton at home, Villa at home, and Ipswich at home, 3 of the next 4. And then in game week 30, if you were to free hit, you come back to Southampton away and Brighton at home. So I think he is going to do really well over this period. And I think he's going to get completely ignored by most FPL managers because I think the consensus right now is maybe to try and keep your free hit for later on in the season. But again, if you're in a position right now where you're free hitting in 29, I absolutely think you could go there. If you're not free hitting in 29, though, I wouldn't be selling Isak, obviously, for him. But if you own Nicholas Jackson, I would be tempted to go there just because the other alternative forwards right now don't really exist with great fixtures. So I understand Jackson to Mateta, and you just accept what will be in 29.
Yeah, it does. And it's interesting there you said about there's no other forwards. And Hibbo, I was going to ask you, the next person I was going to ask you about was Ollie Watkins because we spoke about him last week. And obviously we knew that double game week was going to be happening and that Ollie Watkins was going to have it because we waited until the fixture finished. But we're looking at it. How tempted would you be to get on Ollie Watkins? Because I'm seeing... There's real mixtures in the community at the moment. I'm seeing some people saying, you jump on these double game week assets. If you go for Rodgers, go for Watkins and players like that. And then I'm also seeing people saying, no, the fixture isn't great with Liverpool in there, but we've seen tonight they can concede goals. So, what's your take on Ollie Watkins at the moment? Do you think you'd be trying to get him if you could?
Well, firstly, I think it's encouraging that he's on this table, so the numbers are fairly good. So 4 non-paying scoring contributions over the last 6 is decent from 2.89 XGA. We're going to assume he's still on pens because he missed a penalty against Celtic, which was pretty terrible. Penalties at Villa are just all over the place because obviously there was maybe Tielemans or somebody was on them, or Douglas Luiz, and maybe they thought it was Tielemans. Now it's moved to Watkins, and now is it going to stay on him or go to Morgan Rogers? Who knows?
Or Rashford.
We'll say for now. Maybe Rashford. He would have to get off the pies first. Anyway, what I will say is I do like Watkins and I do like the double game week for Villa. If I was having a piece of it, and we discussed it at length, I think, in the last pod, my preference would obviously be for Rodgers, Watkins, and if I was having a third, it would probably be the manager, Emery, for the ass-man slot. But I really like these numbers. Ipswich at home is a very strong fixture. Liverpool at home, I think you hit the nail on the head. They can still be scored against. And then going forward, the fixtures aren't great. And they obviously blank in 29. So for me, I would have to take out Isak, who's firing, for Watkins. So a striker who's in red hot form for a striker who's been proven to be a wee bit slightly injury prone recently. And they both blank in 29. So I can understand why some people don't want to do it. But I think the fixtures are kind of harder for Isak over the next 3. So I'm kind of tempted to go there. I think they've got Man City on there. They've got Liverpool on that next 3 for Newcastle. So I'll be tempted to have a wee pop on Watkins and just kind of try and play the double game with as strong a hand as possible. But I think watch and see on Watkins' fitness because we're waiting on him basically training, seeing if he gets the all clear. And if he does, I think I'll go there.
Oh, I like it. I like the fact you're going to try and go there. I think it's one of those ones, I don't think I'll do it, but it's just because I feel like I want to make a move somewhere else, basically. And I feel like those Bournemouth lads are going to be quite a good assets to invest in. And obviously, I don't have any at the moment. And Watkins, I'm just not sure myself. By the way, we've got Bill Brownlee in the chat who's put a super chat in. Thank you very much, mate. Saying, Moisey, love the pod, boys. And then he's got a question here. Would you do Enzo to Dango for a -4 to bench Pedro? He already owns Semenyo. Or do I just play Pedro with no hit? Cheers. I'm going to go to you, Nacho, for that one. We'll try and answer it before we carry on into the predicted fixtures.
Yeah, obviously not sure what the rest of your squad looks like, but I would be concerned about João Pedro's minutes just because that Brighton team done really well against Chelsea, and I would fully expect Ruta to actually keep that spot in that number 10 role. So with that understanding of maybe João Pedro not getting any game time, I think Dango actually long term is a really good pick. So I actually quite like the move for a -4 because Dango then covers you off for game week 29 as well. So I like it just because I don't think João Pedro is going to start this weekend.
Yeah. No, nice. I think I would still be looking, though, to see whether you can go to either Cliver or Semenyo. I think I prefer them personally, but we're going to talk about Bournemouth in a little bit, so don't worry. So let's have a look at some predicted fixtures then. So these are from Johnny C, who's FPL Spaceman, I think, wasn't it, Hibbo?
Yeah.
Yeah, so FPL Spaceman, who's done these tables, they're awesome. They're so good. I really love the way that he does them all. And obviously, he's looking at the moment at the probabilities of certain teams blanking and doubling in the game weeks. Now, for all those that don't know, and for those listening on the pod, if they can't see the graphic here, double game week 25 is confirmed. It's Aston Villa and Liverpool both have doubles, and obviously they play against each other in that one. Blank game week 29 is all but certain to be Villa, Palace, Liverpool, and Newcastle not playing. Then it gets a little bit murkier as we look at game week 33, 34, 36 and 37 because obviously they're a little bit further away. We've got other fixtures that need to happen before we can confirm those things are happening. But it's looking likely that in 33 there's going to be doubles for Villa, Crystal Palace, Man City and Newcastle. And then, of course, they will be blanking most likely in 34. So it's all a bit all over the place at the moment. But we can have a rough, loose strategy as to what we think we're going to do. Now, I'm going to start with Nacho and ask you a really simple question that is not simple. And that is, game week 29, blank for Villa, Palace, Liverpool and Newcastle. Will you be free hitting in game week 29? Nice, simple question.
Oh, God. It's not simple, is it, though?
No, it's not.
It's not simple just because, for context, I have currently 2 Palace, 2 Liverpool, and 2 Newcastle. So I'm actually in a position right now where I feel like I'm really on the line. If I didn't have that Crystal Palace coverage, I think I would be very clear. Free hitting game week 29 is not a route for me. The reason why I'm currently leaning towards not free hitting in game week 29 is because of the current injuries to Gordon and Eze, which makes me think I might have to sell one of those two, which then pushes me towards a team that can field in game week 29. So right now I'm a no free hit, but I absolutely love a free hit team in 29 because some of the players you can get as differentials could be a huge upside for you.
Yeah, we spoke about this a little bit last week, didn't we? And I know Hibbo in particular was talking about, like you just said there, the fixtures in 29 and the teams you could have that would be different to those people that don't free hit is quite massive. Like, obviously getting rid of all your Liverpool. There's Newcastle that are very, very popular at the moment. Crystal Palace players are popular as well. People are going to be using up their transfers before 29 to get rid of them. And most likely they're going to want some of those players back after 29 as well. So being able to free hit with Man City players in your team, for instance, getting I was about to say Mo Haaland, getting Erling Haaland back, it's got to be tempting in 29. But, and I know Hibbo, me and you have been having this chat quite a bit recently. There's going to be other weeks that you're likely to use that free hit, but 34 doesn't look like it's going to be quite as hard to steer around as it looked before, is it?
Who's that there? Me or Nacho?
That's to you, Hibbo, yeah.
I think it's a kind of tricky one, because if we're focusing on 33, it looks as if Villa, Bournemouth, Palace, Man City, United, and Newcastle are going to double. Now, the majority of the teams that are going to double in 33 are brought about through the blank in 34, so the fixture kind of moves forward, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I think, just thinking about that as a kind of base theory, if a team doubles one week and they blank the next, it's going to be hard to navigate that period without a free hit, if you know what I mean, at full capacity and at full pelt. Now, for me, I'm thinking I'll more than likely wildcard around kind of 30, 31, 32. And I think at that point, you want to be setting your team up for the run-on, if you know what I mean. Now, if you have a free hit, I think you've got a couple of options. you can free hit the double and set up a team that's able to play through from like 31, aiming towards the later double and say 36, or you can free hit the blank. Now, I think the only danger with that is if you free hit the blank, your team from the double could be a wee bit ropey going forward, if you know what I mean. And I think the kind of key takeaway, and just to kind of shout out JC, Johnny Curry, this is an absolutely amazing visual. Yeah. These boys have set up like a fantasy website called Solio Analytics. So it's JC, Sertalp, Trout, and Jorgen. Very smart men. If you want to learn more about fantasy, look them up. But I think the key takeaways are like you touched on. We know what the double is in 25. We know what the blanks are in 29. Logically, if we look at 33 onwards, it starts to look a wee bit murkier. Now, I think if you're in a position that you can see your team in 29 and think, well, look, with transfers, I can kind of put together something that looks okay. I think by keeping your free hit, you're going to retain a lot of flexibility that you can use in a run-on from like 30 or 31 onwards. So, you know, I think playing that last section without a free hit, I'm not sure there's much ceiling in 29, say, for me, using the free hit as opposed to going on date with transfers compared to what I could potentially do from like 30 to 31 onwards. So the key points they notice here is like what the FA Cup basically governs the latter half of the season, blanks and doubles, so like from 30 onwards. So we're currently at the 5th round stage, and this round basically has its own slot in the fixture schedule, so there's no overlap with like Premier League games. On this round, there's like 8 ties left because it's the last 16 stage, and I think 4 of them are all Premier League ties. So things are going to become a wee bit clear as we approach kind of, say, game week 28, exactly what's kind of happening for these later doubles. So I think this table from Johnny, once he updates it at that point, it'll really start to make a lot more sense. And we're going to be able to nail down at that point, right, who is really likely to blank here and who is really likely to double, especially in the kind of first sets.
Yeah.
But I think for now, it's like, worry about the decisions you need to worry about. And that's basically, do I need a free hit in 29? Because we're basically breaking the game now. Whatever weeks are left, you're basically cutting them in half because of wildcard, in my opinion. So I'm looking at the next 6 game weeks. I'm not looking beyond that because in my head, I'm thinking I'm going to wildcard. But my thinking's basically, do I necessarily want to be burning my free hit on a low ceiling blank?
I get what you're saying, and I get that you're obviously looking at game week 29 and thinking, do I need a free hit in that one? And like Nacho was saying there, you know, free hit in 29 could be brilliant with the difference in the teams that you're going to have. But I'm just looking at that stretch of 33, 34, 36, and I'm thinking wildcard before 33, free hit in 34. You're building for those 2 doubles. For me, that just makes too much sense. And just looking at that stretch without a free hit, 34 becomes a massive issue, I think. And I just look at 34 and think that's almost like that's just going to be a done week. Like, you're not going to really be looking at that week and thinking I can get anything out of it. Whereas with the free hit, you're looking at that whole stretch and it becomes that much stronger. Don't get me wrong, this is just the way I'm looking at it at the moment, and obviously that can all change. But Nacho, if you were to say, I want to use my free hit in 34 or around there, if you were then not obviously using it in 29, who would you be investing in at the moment to ensure that your game week 29 was actually had some players that would play? Because obviously Aston Villa double this week, but if you're going to buy Aston Villa players, that's not strengthening you for 29. So who would you be investing in at the moment to ensure that 29 wasn't too bad and you could save your free hit?
Yeah, so I think there are a couple of teams who absolutely tick all the boxes where they're a great investment for the short term. They have a fixture for 29, and they actually have some good fixtures after game week 29 up until that wildcard kind of period. So the first one we spoke about so much is going to be Bournemouth from both defensive and offensive options. And the price point of them is what makes them so attractive. Like, you could go double up in the midfielders and only spend just over 11 million, which is just ridiculous value this season. So, for example, Bournemouth, you could get Brighton and Spurs away. Now, I know it doesn't sound fantastic, but would you feel that fussed about starting them in those games? Absolutely not. Then you got Brentford at home in game week.
Fixtures up for you, by the way. Sorry.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, perfect. We got Brentford obviously at home in game week 29, which is great. But then the big thing about it is game week 30, which we do need to consider if you're not free hitting. What does your team look like? You'll then have Ipswich at home, which is also a brilliant fixture. So I think Bournemouth, rightly so, becomes top of the priority right now for a lot of FPL managers out there. The problem is also with some teams. So let's take Nottingham Forest as an example. That is a team that is going to be highly owned in game week 29 because some managers are going to keep Chris Wood between now and then. Defensive ownership is quite large, but would I be investing right now in Nottingham Forest assets? I probably wouldn't. So I think you almost need to put certain teams in different spots. You need to put Bournemouth as a team that you can absolutely purchase from now, but a Nottingham Forest is one of those where actually keeping transfers available in the background till you hit game week 29 is then a team that you can invest in if you want to, because you get that great fixture against Ipswich and you also get Man United at home, which isn't a bad fixture at all. So yeah, I think it's all about understanding when to jump on teams. Bournemouth right now is a priority, I think.
So go on then. I'm going to push you. Give me your Bournemouth assets that you want to own in terms of priorities, because those midfielders we mentioned 3 already on this stream. Kluivert, who's on penalties, Semenyo, who's looked good most of the season, hasn't always returned, but against big teams he seems to return as well. And Dango, who obviously got a hat trick not that long ago, is playing up top. You've also got some defenders. You've got Howson, you've got Kirkes. Talk me through who you think is your priority buys out of those ones.
Yeah, I think there's about a 0.6 difference now between Huijsen and Kirkes. So it's starting to get a little bit large. So I actually prefer the cheaper option there. I think Kirkes is great. He does offer attacking potential, but rather just save the money, really. So I'd rather go for Huijsen, whatever his name is, in defence. Howson. Nearly there. I think I was doing Huijsen sauce, wasn't I? The bloody Chinese sauce, I think it was. And then the midfielders, I don't think there's a wrong answer, to be honest with you. I think Semenyo is the safest for minutes. I think Dango is just really good underlying numbers. And I don't actually think he loses his spot in this team. I think he could lose minutes, but I think we're kind of trying to convince ourselves that he'll eventually lose his spot in the team. So I think I'll go for Ouattara and probably Kluivert as my 2 picks there. But I honestly don't think it's a bad combination.
And you've got Semenyo.
And I've got Semenyo.
Yeah.
So, lose.
Yes. I mean, Hibbo, I'm going to be horrible to Nacho here and say I think there is a wrong answer, because this always happens in FPL and it's never going to be that all 3 obviously do well. And obviously I know what Nacho's saying, I'm just being mean. But if we go with the assumption that there is going to be one of these that doesn't work, Kluivert could revert back to type. I know he's on penalties, but he's always been going off around 70. They're getting a lot of players back from injury. Semenyo, lots of us owned him during a really nice fixture run and he didn't do a lot and returned an awful lot once the fixtures got tough. And Dango obviously has never been prolific and he's brand new. He's always been extremely raw, playing up top. He's not Evan Nielsen. So there's worries about all of them. So in your opinion, if you could only pick one of them, which one would you be picking?
Tough. I think it would be nice if one of them was a forward.
Yeah.
Because we've obviously kind of got a couple of forwards that are kind of misfiring at the minute. I've got João Pedro. He's not the golden boy that I once thought he was. But midfield slots are at a premium. So I can't this week double up saying that on the Bournemouth mids as much as I would love to, because I've basically got Semenyo. But the other expendable slot I have is Bruno Fernandes, who's playable in 29. So I can't lose him now because I've got one hit in that kind of future game week. If you're asking me which one, going to my head, which one I had to pick as the best option, I own Semenyo, but I would say Kluivert. Because I just think the pens are too strong now. I do take the point that Tavernier is coming back under the team. He could maybe take minutes off the other attackers, but I think at the same time, pens is just too strong. I think you touched on minutes, and Kluivert is playing high 60s, low 70s for the most part. But in the last 3, he had 90 minutes, 87, 90 in the league. So the minutes are reasonably there. The pens are there. He seems to be a more explosive pick than Semenyo. I know I hate that term myself, but the ceiling seems to be there in the fact that he's got open play goal involvement, but he was also reliant to a certain extent on penalty kicks. But I think the play would be the double on him if he possibly could. And I would agree with Nacho. I don't really think there's a wrong option. I own Semenyo, and if I was adding a second one, I think it would definitely be Kluivert.
Interesting as well, Semenyo took the pen in the FA Cup. So considering that maybe if Kluivert's not on the pitch, that Semenyo is the next man up. And if Kluivert is going off low 60s, high 70s, then you get potentially 20, 25 minutes of Semenyo on pens. But obviously, that's if Semenyo plays a full 90 as well, but that's worth mentioning too.
Good point.
Dango for me is actually third choice. It's really close between Kluivert and Semenyo, and I'm trying to distinguish between the two. But I think pens is massive, and we've seen that they get a lot of pens at the moment. They've got really tricky players up there, and they do tend to get a lot of penalties, which is strange considering that they went years and years without having a penalty in the Premier League. So I think Kluivert, it looks like he's going to be this year's Lingard, doesn't he? Where everybody was saying every single week he can't keep doing this, and he just kept doing it. But obviously Lingard wasn't even on penalties. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. And I do agree completely with what Nacho said. Bournemouth looked like the team to invest in if you are not free hitting in 29. But Hibbo, if you were free hitting in 29 and that was your strategy and you're locked in, yeah, that's right, mate. I'm giving you both the tough questions tonight. Who would you be investing in then? Because Nacho's already said about Crystal Palace. And obviously, Crystal Palace have that blank in 29, but they do have Everton, Ipswich, Southampton all around there as well. Who would you be investing in if you weren't worried about 29 at all?
If I wasn't worried about 29, that's a tough question. How long did I just get my fixture ticker up here?
Oh, I've stumped him, Nacho.
Here we go.
He's going to say better, wouldn't he?
Well, do you know my only problem with people saying that they're going to free hit in 29? Like, when are they planning the wildcard? That's the kind of thing that's blowing my mind, because like if they're going to free hit in 29, I'm assuming they're still going to wildcard relatively early in the 30s, that they're not going to leave the wildcard until later in the season. So like if you take 29 out of the mix on Scout Ticker, Liverpool are kind of top right through to about 35. Like Liverpool and Arsenal. Now, I assume most people have like a Liverpool triple up. So you're not really kind of going to be going there. But I do think Bournemouth still hold. Bournemouth have Southampton away. They have Wolves. They've got Brighton. They've got Spurs. They've got Ipswich. They've got West Ham. They've got good fixtures right through to 34, even if you take out 29. So I think they would probably still be a priority if you were deciding to free hit.
So are we saying that regardless of your strategy, we should all be buying Bournemouth this week?
I think so.
Yeah.
Because I think regardless, like, all right, you're taking out that week, 29, and the reality is if you're playing a free hit, you're probably going to have a few of them in your free hit team anyway. But the strength of the fixtures kind of either side of 29 say to me that you should own one, but maybe two's optimal. Like I'm going to work towards two. Like looking at my team, the most likely route for me is if I get Rodgers out to Kluivert. But I obviously can't do it this week because he's got the double game week. But then going forward, I don't like the fixtures really for Rodgers, and he's going to blank on 29. So I'm thinking just cut my losses and get Kluivert.
Yeah.
Maybe from next week.
Oh, for God's sake, I was going to be getting Kluivert and I can't do it now because otherwise I'm going to be accused of copying you again. Right, let's have a look at some bus teams. And I was literally just about to say my moves, and I love the fact I get to see him before Hibbo, but now obviously he's told us what he's thinking about doing. So my team looking this week, I've got Pickford in goal. I've got Gabriel, Trent, who... Got to obviously have to keep an eye on that, but he's got double game week, so there's no way I'm going to sell him or bench him. And then I got Howson at the back as well. Really happy I've kept Howson through this entire thing, actually. I like him, obviously, moving forward. An absolute beast for bonus points, Howson, as well. Then I've got Gordon and Bumo, Salah is captain, Rodgers and Palmer. And then I've got Raul Jimenez and Isak up top with Valdemarson and Dye, Hall and Lewis on the bench. And I've also got Slot, obviously, who's active as well. Now, at the moment, so I've got one free transfer and like 0 on the bank because obviously I've used up 1.5 million to get Arnie Slot. Brilliant. But I'm looking at this and I think Gordon to a Bournemouth midfielder just makes a lot of sense for me. It frees up a little bit of funds. Obviously helps me for free hit 29, so keeps my options open there. Not for free hit 29, for blank game week 29, sorry. And I like Bournemouth obviously moving forward. Anyway, they've got Southampton away, so I've got Howson and then a Bournemouth mid, which I think is good coverage there. A lot of people are saying, Gordon could do really, really well against City. I think he's obviously got a bit of a knock. He's going to play, but I just feel like that's a good move moving forward. The only thing I'll say is I have been ridiculous at selling points this year. Every time I sell a player, they do so well the immediate week after I sell them. I sold Wood this week, and obviously he scored a hat-trick. So selling Gordon, just buy Gordon, basically, especially if you're on free hit 29. So that's what I'm looking to do. But I'm fairly happy with how the team's set up, and I think that's going to be my only move. Hibbo, talk us through your team, mate, and what you're thinking about doing. Surely it's not getting a Bournemouth mid.
I already have one.
Yes, you do.
Team feels okay for what's, I suppose, now a double game week 25. So I have the triple Liverpool in place. So Trent, Salah, Slot. Trent obviously feels a wee bit shaky, but I think we've covered that. Aston Villa wise, I've got Morgan Rogers. So basically going on this week, I've got 2 frees and 0.4 million in the bank. And I think, as we've touched on in the pod, it's prudent to kind of strike a balance now between how I commit to this double and how we approach the future weeks, including blank game week 29. So really, my thought process is focusing on the next 6 weeks because I'm going to wildcard nearly 30s. And yeah, I think I can navigate 29 really without a free hit. So looking at, just to kind of talk through my team from back to front for the podcast, folks, I've got Pickford, Nets, Gabriel, Alexander-Arnold, and Timber. And then I've got Salah, boss team captain, Palmer, Bruno Fernandes, Rogers, Semenyo. And then up top at the minute, I've got João Pedro and Isaac. Beto could play for me ahead of João Pedro. I could drop João Pedro out if I have any kind of concerns about the minutes. But in terms of a transfer, I'm looking at potentially Isaac to Watkins. And I know people think it's crazy, but I don't care. Do you know, I don't. I think in terms of the fixtures, they're playing City, they're playing Forest, they're playing Liverpool, Isaac and Newcastle United. So I think as a purely fixture play, it makes sense with a double. Ipswich at home, Liverpool at home. And I feel just making that change, I would roll on the next week with 2 free transfers. And I think that gives me an option then. Do I make a manager change in Assman? Do I change Slot and maybe try and hunt the table bonus in the last week of that for myself? Or do I just kind of say, well, you know what? Slot's done me good. I'll keep him on there. Man City are a bit ropey at the minute. I fancy Liverpool to beat them. And I'll keep a transfer for like 29. So that'll be my decision next week. But the idea is make one change, providing Watkins is okay, and take 2 on the next week.
Absolutely love the fact you're sat there with Pedro and Beto in your team. And you're
No
like,
worries.
Nah, I'll ditch Isak. Yeah, I'll ditch Isak.
Different breed, this guy.
Yeah, he is different breed. Absolutely different breed. Nacho, he is the queen of the night, though, isn't he? Nacho, talk us through your team, my man.
God damn, yeah. So I'm coming into this week with 2 free transfers, 0 in the bank, because as we know, the assistant manager has taken everything from us, money-wise. So I was quickly read through the team for those listening. Pickford in goal. Then we got the back 3 of Trent, Gabriel, and Munoz. No worries for me. Trent coming on in that game against Everton. I would need to have some bad news in the press conference to even consider selling him. Midfield 5 is Semenyo, Gordon, Palmer, Salah, Eze. Front 2 of Vissa and Isak. Now, right now, I'm just going to be waiting for Friday for the press conferences. We won't get anything. If anyone's sat there right now with Anthony Gordon, we're not going to get any news from Eddie Howe. The big one for me is Eze. I think we heard that he missed the FA Cup game because of another knock. And right now, his season's just been completely plagued with injuries. So he's been a really frustrating player for me. So I need to see what happens Friday. If we get both past fit, I actually think I could just roll the transfer, to be honest with you. I think the team looks absolutely fine. But I also, with 2 free transfers, would be tempted to maybe do Gordon to Kluivert and Eze to Mbeumo and just really lock myself in on a game week 29 without using my free hit. And it enables me to get rid of the 2 players at blank. I get in long-term players that I know I'm going to want until around game week 31. And I just let the team then hopefully roll transfers up until game week 29, apart from my assistant manager chip. So I'm really dependent on news, but I think otherwise I might make 2 transfers and just get the boys in long-term.
Yeah, I mean, those moves would really, really help you. Obviously, for 29, you'd have triple Brentford as well for that week as well, which obviously wouldn't be too
Christ,
bad.
I would, yeah.
Yeah, you would. Yeah, which is at least you got it, I suppose. But obviously, it's the Palace boys. But you're not going to be wanting to get rid of Munoz anytime soon, are you? So,
No, that's it.
No, nice moves. Nice to have the 2 free transfers as well. Do you know what? It's one thing that I didn't envision with this Assman chip as well. Was 1.5 million is a hell of a lot to lose from your budget for 3 weeks. Like I just didn't see it. Like it was actually quite a lot to get up to, and then obviously to then not have it in your budget for 3 weeks, it actually does hinder you quite a bit. And I was quite surprised when it took out. And obviously, if you went for Moyes, it's only 0.5, was it, or 0.8? I can't remember what it was now. And obviously, it's not as much. But yeah, it threw me quite a bit when obviously I activated it. I wasn't expecting it until it actually happens. You obviously don't know what's going to happen, do you? But right. Back to the intro screen so we can have some questions. We got almost 500 people in the chat. Thanks so much for joining us this evening. Hopefully some of you joined us from Black Box. I know they were streaming tonight as well. Hopefully, I mean, I'm assuming as bench boosted because I'm assuming he tries to do that every week. So chuck us in some questions and we will try and answer as many as possible. I love you, Az, don't worry. So try and chuck them in and we'll have a look. M. Dye says, yeah, jealous of Munoz owners this game week. Yeah, and last week. Although you benched his points, Nacho, didn't you?
Bench them ones, yeah.
Yeah,
So that was
ones.
great.
Yeah, he is great mind. Like I love Tyreek Mitchell, but Munoz gets forward so well, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's fantastic.
Does it internationally as well. It's great watching him. Van Halmina says Munoz on Tarkovsky owner here. Very nice.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Not too bad, is it? Lots of people in the chat saying what happens to Slot now he's been sent off. He won't miss any games. Obviously, he might in real life, but with the assistant manager chip, he won't miss any games. He's not suspended. He doesn't lose any points. Don't worry. Just keep him for the double. For FPL Frost says, as had Moyes, assistant manager. Mark had Slot. Mark was distraught at the end. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Yeah, if Slot got sent... and some of these names tonight. and Sidat says, if Slot was sent off, do we still get AM points next game? Yes, you do. Christian, will Slot miss games due to red? No, he won't.
See, the easiest way to explain it is you're picking the team. You're not picking the manager.
But some of these names, Hibbo. Jogvan Eli Fagraklet.
That's a good effort.
Thank you. Says, do you reckon TA will start versus Wolves? What do you reckon, Nacho? I'm having a rest.
Yeah, I think he will. I think he will. Obviously, we don't actually know, but yeah, I would be quite surprised if he wasn't start that game.
Yeah. Wait, Hibbo, still feel the same?
Yeah, I think he starts.
Yeah. FPL Zeitgul.
Oh God, I'll tell you,
Jesus, mate.
Zeitgul says the end of Black Box was a classic. Here we go. I like you. Joel says, I've got Konsa. What do I do? Mikolenko will be my sub. Kirkes. Do I get Kirkes in ahead of 29? What do you reckon, Hibbo? If you got Konsa, what do you do?
He's definitely out then, is he? Is that?
I haven't had an update on him, to be fair.
He's not a player that's really been on my radar because I haven't really been looking to buy him. But I think if he's definitely ruled out this weekend, there's if your defense is a wee bit strung out, there's obviously that option to go Kirkes, and he helps you in the 29. Then it could be the move to make.
Yeah.
So I would definitely consider that.
Yeah. Dave says, here's a normal name. Thank you so much, Dave.
Dave.
Omar says, hi from Germany. I didn't go with any Everton and have 4 free transfers. Should I go for Villa and then transfer them out? What do you think, Nacho?
Well, I guess you were saying to transfer out, then you're not going down the free hit 29 route. I don't love that. Like, yes, if you're blessed with loads of transfers, you're going to be burning them, then you could jump on and jump off strategy. And by the way, I think Aston Villa players are good for 26 against Chelsea. I think they will actually beat Chelsea as well. So I think you could actually look at Villa for 25 and 26. And I don't hate that then, if that's your only move and you're going to constantly be sitting at 4 or 5 transfers. Then Villa for the next 2 game weeks, I actually think it's an okay strategy.
Yeah. Meknath Vidi says, is it worth bringing Emi Martinez in, Hibbo?
It depends who your keeper is. Do you know, like, I think at this stage, Martinez isn't going to play in 29. Do you know, so like you're potentially buying a keeper and you're potentially not going to have any keeper in that game week. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's got to be a real consideration. Like for me, I've got Pickford. He plays in 29. I'm not going to overcomplicate it. You know, so you would need to be in a position where you're playing with 2 keepers, and then it's a very expensive structure if you're bringing in Martinez for the next while, even though he blinks. It wouldn't really be for me.
Yeah. And Jimmy Swag says assistant manager chip users should be penalised for slots red cards. For slots red card. What are your thoughts? What do you reckon, Nacho? Because this might be here next year. I don't think it will be, but it might be here next year. Do you think it should be a bit more like that? I mean, the chances of it happening were so low, and obviously it's happened. Do you think it should be like that?
No, because as we mentioned, I think we are investing in the team as opposed to the manager, as Hibbo stated, and as 3 slot managers here, we absolutely do not want that to happen this game week. No, I think that's just too heavily invested in managers. I just think stick with the team and how the team gets on.
I'm also very. I was just about to say, by the way, sorry, I'm very happy with the chat that there was no slot shaming tonight. So thank you very much, Hibbo. What were you going to say?
Yeah.
Do you know what they should do?
What?
They should condemn this chap to hell and never bring it back again. I know.
Tell me about it.
I know I talked like as if I kind of came round to the idea of the ass-man-ship. But see now in practice, get rid of it. It's the biggest load of shit ever in this game. Sorry for me. Apologies for my language.
Apologies, people, for that language.
I'll apologize for my
swear
own
words,
language.
not the Irish accent.
It has to go. Like, we can't be keeping this next season. It's too convoluted and crazy, and 3 game weeks of locking you out of other chips. And it's trying to say, it's bringing this real strategic element, but I don't even think the game owners knew what game they were going to create at the start of the season. Sorry, I don't think they did. I think they made it up about 4 months on the season.
Yeah,
and that's why it was called a mystery chip.
I'd be surprised if they did their due diligence on it as well. I think it literally just went in.
Crazy.
Like, there we go, done. Anyway, thank you so much for the people in the chat, and thank you for your questions as well. Thank you for the 500 people that were watching with us tonight, because we appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for all those people that were listening afterwards, or if you are listening on the pod as well, because you all make it worthwhile. So thank you very much. Hibbo, thank you very much for joining us this evening. I don't know why I've gone to you first. Usually I go to Nacho, but I thought I'd swap it round a bit. So, Hibbo, thank you for joining us this evening. I hope you enjoyed yourself.
I did. Well, you came to me first because I got the green arrow. So,
yes,
been displaced.
That's why.
Beto,
That's why.
21 points for Beto.
Why? Nacho, thank you so much for joining us this evening, my man. I actually enjoyed you being here.
Thank you, mate. Thank you. Yeah, it's this has been therapeutic, to say the least, after that late Everton goal. So, no, pleasure as always. And a reminder, anyone watching this or listening, it's a Friday deadline, not Saturday. So I'm just gonna, hopefully I can help one person out there. Just saying.
Yes.
Actually, no, I don't want to help anybody after this week. No, forget that.
Yeah, Saturday deadline. Right. Thank you so much to everybody that's been listening. We will see you again next week. As Nacho's already said, it's a Friday deadline, so do not be caught out. Thank you so much, and we'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.